She thought I'd never find out. She was wrong about a lot of things, but that one cost her everything. I pulled into the driveway around 9 on a Tuesday night, covered in sawdust and joint compound from a bathroom renovation over in Granville. My truck smelled like pine and drywall mud, and all I wanted was a hot shower and whatever leftovers my wife had in the fridge. The porch light was off, which was unusual. Rachel always left it on when I worked late. She said the dark made our street look creepy. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and heard a man's voice coming from the kitchen, not the TV. An actual voice, low and familiar, followed by my wife's laugh. That specific laugh she used to save for me, the one that came from somewhere deep, not the polite one she used at her office holiday parties. I set my toolbox down quietly by the door and walked toward the kitchen. Through the crack of the half-open door, I saw them. Rachel was sitting on the counter, barefoot, holding a glass of red wine. Standing between her knees with his hands on her waist was a guy I recognized immediately. Tyler Brannigan, 29 years old, personal trainer at the CrossFit box on Elm Street. And, until 3 weeks ago, my daughter Chloe's boyfriend. They weren't doing anything explicitly wrong in that moment, but you don't need to see a car wreck happen to know the road's covered in glass. His hands had no business being where they were. Her eyes had no business looking at him the way they did. I stepped back into the hallway before either of them saw me. My heart was hammering against my ribs so loud I was convinced they'd hear it. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, maybe 10 minutes. I honestly don't know. Then I picked up my toolbox, walked back outside, and sat in my truck in the dark. I'm Derek Callahan, 47 years old. I've been a general contractor in Ridgemont, Ohio since I was 23. I built half the decks and finished basements in this town with my own hands. My wife Rachel is a CPA, senior accountant at Whitfield & Associates, the biggest accounting firm in the county. We've been married for 20 years. Our daughter Chloe is 21, finishing her last year at Ohio State, majoring in marketing. I sat in my truck for 40 minutes that night. When I finally went back inside, Tyler was gone and Rachel was loading the dishwasher like nothing had happened. "You're home late," she said, not turning around. "Big job in Granville. Ran over schedule. There's leftover pasta in the fridge." I heated up the pasta and ate it standing at the counter, while Rachel talked about a new client at the firm, some real estate developer, bringing in a lot of business. She seemed relaxed, happy even. I studied her face while she talked, looking for guilt, for nervousness, for anything. She gave me nothing. 20 years of marriage and the woman could lie to my face without a single tell. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Rachel slept beside me. I kept replaying what I'd seen. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Tyler had just stopped by to pick up something Chloe had left behind. Maybe the hands on her waist were just friendly. Maybe the laugh meant nothing. I almost convinced myself. Then, the next morning, I found a receipt in Rachel's coat pocket while hanging it up. The Riverside Inn, a hotel 2 towns over. Friday night, 1 room, 2 guests. She'd paid cash but kept the receipt, probably out of habit. Accountants and their paperwork. I called my buddy Hank Morrison, who'd been through his own ugly divorce 2 years back. He gave me the name of an attorney, Patricia Reeves, who worked out of an office above the hardware store on Main. Small town Ohio. Everything's above something else. Patricia was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste words. She told me 2 things. First, Ohio is a no-fault divorce state, but proof of adultery can influence property division and spousal support. Second, I needed documentation. Dates, times, photos, receipts, everything. "I don't want to be that guy," I told her, "the one hiding in bushes with a camera." She leaned across her desk. "Mr. Callahan, your wife is an accountant. She handles money for a living. If this goes south and you're not prepared, she will clean you out before you even know you're in court. Be that guy." So I became that guy. For 3 weeks, I paid attention. I noticed patterns I'd been too trusting or too tired to see before. Rachel left for work at 7:30 every morning, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she didn't come home until almost 8. She said it was tax season prep, even though tax season was 4 months away. Her phone was always face down on the table now. She'd started showering the second she got home, something she'd never done in 20 years, and she'd bought new underwear. Not the comfortable cotton stuff she'd worn since I'd known her. Lace. Tags still on them in the bathroom trash. I hired a private investigator named Gus Petrakis, a retired Dayton PD detective who now worked out of a cramped office above a Greek restaurant. He charged $300 a day and was worth every penny. Within a week, Gus had photos. Rachel and Tyler at the Riverside Inn. Rachel and Tyler at a restaurant in Columbus, 60 miles from anyone who might recognize them. Rachel's BMW parked behind Tyler's apartment building at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday when she was supposed to be at the office. The affair had been going on for at least 4 months, Gus told me over the phone. Based on hotel records, probably closer to 6. I felt sick. 6 months. Half a year of lies delivered with a smile over morning coffee and goodnight kisses. But Gus wasn't done. There's something else, he said. Something you're going to want to sit down for. I sat down. Your wife's been moving money. I noticed charges on a credit card she has in her maiden name, Rachel Whitfield. She opened a separate checking account at a bank in Columbus 8 months ago. Current balance is around $170,000. Where's the money coming from? I can't trace it all, but some of it matches withdrawal patterns from Whitfield and Associates' client escrow accounts. My wife was stealing from her own firm. The firm her father had founded 40 years ago. The firm that still bore her maiden name on the door. She was embezzling from the family business. I called Patricia Reeves immediately. She went quiet for a long time when I told her. Then she said something I'll never forget. Derek, this changes everything. You're not just dealing with an unfaithful wife anymore. You're dealing with a potential felon. You need to protect yourself and your assets before this blows up. I spent the next 2 weeks building a case. Gus gathered financial records. Patricia prepared divorce papers. I documented every lie Rachel told me, writing it down in a notebook I kept locked in my truck's toolbox. Dates, times, exact words. During those 2 weeks, 2 things happened that nearly broke me. The first was Chloe calling me on a Sunday afternoon. She was crying. Dad, I need to tell you something. It's about Tyler. What about him? He's been texting me, bragging basically, saying he's with someone older now, someone important. He sent me a photo of a woman's hand with a ring on it. Dad, I think it's Mom's ring. I closed my eyes. Chloe's voice sounded like it did when she was 6 and fell off her bike. Small and confused and looking for me to make sense of a world that suddenly didn't make any. I know, sweetheart. I already know. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted forever. How long? She whispered. Months. She hung up. I sat in my garage shop and stared at the wall for an hour. The second thing happened 3 days later. I came home from a job site, and Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table with a look on her face I'd never seen before. Half nervous, half triumphant. Derek, I have some news. I waited. I'm pregnant. The room tilted. We hadn't slept together in almost 5 months. I'd been staying up late in my workshop, falling asleep on the couch, finding every excuse to avoid intimacy because the thought of touching her made me physically ill. Pregnant, I repeated. I know it's unexpected. We're not as young as we used to be, but I think this could be wonderful for us. A fresh start. She reached across the table for my hand. I pulled away. When did you find out? Last week. I've already seen Dr. Kapoor. She says I'm about 10 weeks along. 10 weeks. Which meant conception was right in the middle of the affair timeline. There was no possible way this child was mine. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd built a house for with my own hands, who I'd held through her father's funeral, who I'd worked 60-hour weeks to support while she got her CPA license. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold, empty space where love used to be. That's great, I said. I'll set up the spare bedroom. I walked out to my truck and drove to the lake where I used to take Chloe fishing when she was little. I sat on the tailgate and called Patricia. She's pregnant. It's not mine. Patricia sighed. This actually helps your case. But Derek, the embezzlement situation is more pressing. If the firm or the feds find out before you're legally protected, this could get extremely complicated. How soon can we move? I can file papers this week if you're ready. I'm ready, but I wasn't done yet. I needed to know the full scope of what Rachel had done. Gus dug deeper into the finances, and what he found was worse than I'd imagined. Rachel hadn't just been skimming from client accounts. She'd been running a scheme with Tyler. He'd opened a fitness equipment import company on paper, a shell company with no real business. Rachel was funneling client money through the shell company, taking a cut, and depositing the rest into the Columbus checking account. Tyler handled the fake invoices. Rachel cooked the books at the firm to cover the shortfall. Total damage, $223,000. She'd been stealing from retirement accounts, trust funds, estate settlements, money that belonged to people in our community. Mrs. Nakamura, who'd lost her husband last year, and trusted Rachel to manage the estate. The Dalton family, whose college fund for their twins was sitting in an escrow account at Whitfield and Associates. Coach Briggs's pension fund. These were people I knew. people whose homes I'd worked on, people who waved to me at the grocery store. I drove to Tyler Brannigan's gym on a Friday evening, not to confront him. Not yet. I wanted to see who he was when he thought nobody was watching. The gym was one of those trendy CrossFit places with exposed brick and chalk dust on everything. Tyler was leading a class, shouting motivational garbage at a group of women who were twice his age, and clearly there for the view more than the exercise. He was good looking, I'll give him that. The kind of guy who checks his reflection in every window he passes. I watched for 20 minutes, then I left. That Sunday, I invited Chloe home for dinner, just the two of us. Rachel was at a conference in Cleveland, which actually meant she was at the Riverside Inn with Tyler. Gus had confirmed it an hour ago. I cooked steaks on the grill, Chloe's favorite. We sat at the kitchen table and I told her everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the pregnancy, the shell company, all of it. Chloe didn't cry this time. She listened with her jaw set and her eyes hard. She looked exactly like me in that moment. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm filing for divorce this week, and I'm reporting the embezzlement to the State Board of Accountancy and the county prosecutor." Good. That one word coming from my daughter gave me more strength than anything else could have. "She's still my mom," Chloe added quietly, "but she needs to face what she did. Those are real people's money she stole." "I know, sweetheart. I need you to promise me something, Dad. Anything. Promise me you won't let her talk you out of it. She's going to cry. She's going to beg. She's going to say everything you want to hear. Don't fall for it." "I won't." Monday morning, Patricia filed the divorce papers. Tuesday morning, I walked into the county prosecutor's office with a banker's box full of evidence. Financial records, Gus's surveillance photos, bank statements, shell company documents. The prosecutor, a woman named Janet Tao, spent 2 hours going through everything with growing disbelief on her face. "You're sure about this?" she asked. "I have a private investigator's full report, bank records, and hotel receipts going back 6 months. I'm sure." By Wednesday, Rachel knew something was wrong. She called me 14 times. I didn't answer. She drove to my job site in Granville, and I told my foreman to tell her I wasn't there. Thursday evening, she finally caught me at home. "Derek, what is going on?" I got served divorce papers at work, in front of my colleagues. I was sitting in my workshop, cleaning a table saw blade. I didn't look up. "You read the papers. You know what's going on." "This is insane. Is this about the pregnancy?" "I told you we can make this work." "The baby's not mine, Rachel. We both know that." She went pale. "That's not true. We haven't been together in 5 months. You're 10 weeks pregnant. Do the math. You're an accountant. You're good with numbers." She started crying. "Derek, please. Let me explain." I set down the blade and looked at her for the first time. "Explain what? The affair with Tyler Brannigan? The shell company? The $223,000 you stole from your clients?" Rachel's crying stopped like someone had flipped a switch. Her face changed. The mask cracked and I saw something cold underneath. "How did you find out about the money? Does it matter? Who told you? Was it someone at the firm?" "Nobody told me. I figured it out because you got sloppy, and I stopped being naive." She stood there breathing hard, calculating. I could almost see the numbers running behind her eyes, the accountant's brain trying to figure out how to balance this ledger. "I can put the money back," she said. "All of it. Nobody needs to know." Too late. The county prosecutor already knows. Rachel's face went white, then red, then a shade of gray I'd never seen on a living person. "You went to the prosecutor?" "I did." "You're going to destroy me." I stood up and faced her. "No, Rachel. You destroyed yourself. I'm just the one who stopped looking the other way." She screamed at me then, called me names I won't repeat, threw a can of wood stain against the wall, told me I was a loser, a nobody, a man who builds other people's houses because he couldn't build anything of his own. I let her finish. Then I said, quietly, "I built this house, the one you're standing in. I built it with my hands, board by board, nail by nail, for you and Chloe. And you used it as a place to hide receipts from hotel rooms where you slept with a 29-year-old con artist." She left. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life, and also, strangely, the clearest. Rachel was charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering. Tyler was charged as a co-conspirator. The shell company scheme unraveled fast, once forensic accountants got involved. Rachel hired a defense attorney from Columbus, an expensive one. She tried to negotiate a deal, claiming she'd been coerced by Tyler, that she was vulnerable, that the pregnancy had affected her judgment. The prosecutor wasn't buying it. The financial trail showed Rachel had masterminded the entire operation. Tyler was the muscle, she was the brain. Rachel's father, Old Mr. Whitfield, who'd retired 5 years ago and handed the firm to his daughter, had a heart attack when he found out. He survived, but he never spoke to Rachel again. The firm's reputation was destroyed. 2 senior partners left. Half the clients pulled their accounts. The divorce was finalized in March. I got the house, my truck, all my equipment, and 70% of our shared assets. Rachel's attorney tried to argue for a more even split, but the embezzlement charges made that argument pretty hard to sell to a judge. The baby was born in June, a boy. Rachel had a DNA test done, which confirmed what we all knew. Tyler was the father. She named the baby Lucas. From what I heard through Chloe, Tyler wanted nothing to do with the child. He was too busy preparing for his own trial. Rachel called me once, about a week after Lucas was born. She asked if I would consider being the baby's legal father, adopting him, giving him the Callahan name, raising him as my own. I said no. Not because I had anything against an innocent baby, but because Rachel needed to face the reality of the life she'd chosen. She didn't get to blow up my world and then ask me to pick up the pieces. Chloe drove home from Columbus the weekend after the baby was born. She sat with me on the front porch, the same porch I'd built when she was 3 years old, and we drank lemonade and watched fireflies. "Have you seen him?" I asked. "The baby." "Yeah, he's cute. Looks like Tyler." "How's your mom?" "Tired. Scared. She's looking at 3 to 5 years if the plea deal goes through." "How do you feel about that?" Chloe was quiet for a while. Sad, angry, relieved. "Is that weird?" "No, that's honest." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Dad, I've been thinking. After I graduate in December, I want to come back to Ridgemont. Help you with the business." "I don't need help." "Yes, you do. You're terrible at invoicing. You still write estimates on the backs of envelopes. You need a website, a social media presence, an actual accounting system." I laughed for the first time in months. "You sound like a business major." "That's because I am one." Rachel's trial lasted 4 days. She pled guilty to reduced charges as part of a deal and was sentenced to 38 months at a federal facility in Alderson, West Virginia. Tyler got 18 months probation and 200 hours of community service. The judge also ordered full restitution of the stolen funds. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. Patricia sent me a text when it was over. Done. She got 38 months. I texted back a thumbs up emoji and went back to installing cabinets in Mrs. Nakamura's kitchen. She'd hired me to renovate her bathroom and kitchen after her husband's estate was finally settled. The money Rachel had stolen from her had been returned. "You're a good man, Derek," Mrs. Nakamura told me when I finished the job. "This town's lucky to have you." "I just fix things," I said. "It's what I do." Chloe graduated summa cum laude in December and moved back home. Within 3 months, she'd set up a website, an online booking system, and a social media account for the business. She handled scheduling, invoicing, client communication, and marketing. I focused on what I was good at, building things. We hired 2 more guys, a young carpenter named Devin, fresh out of vocational school, eager to learn, and a retired electrician named Frank who was bored sitting at home and wanted part-time work. Callahan Construction and Renovation. That was the new name Chloe came up with. She even designed the logo, a hammer crossed with a house frame, simple and clean. By spring, we had a 6-week backlog of jobs. Decks, kitchens, basements, additions. Word of mouth in a small town is the best advertising there is, and apparently my reputation for honest work and fair prices had spread to 3 neighboring counties. I started seeing someone around that time, a woman named Laura, who ran the flower shop on Pine Street. She was 42, divorced, had a teenage son. We met when I stopped in to buy flowers for Chloe's graduation party, and she told me I was picking out funeral arrangements, not congratulations bouquets. She rearranged the flowers right there at the counter, creating something colorful and alive, and I asked her to dinner before I knew I was going to. Laura was nothing like Rachel. She was direct, funny, terrible at keeping secrets, and completely comfortable with who she was. She wore dirt under her fingernails from potting soil and didn't apologize for it. When I told her about Rachel, about everything, she listened without interrupting, and then said, "Well, her loss." That was enough. 2 years after the divorce, on a Saturday afternoon in September, I was working in my garage shop when an unfamiliar car pulled into the driveway. Rachel got out. She looked different, thinner, older. Her hair was shorter and she wasn't wearing makeup. She'd been released 4 months early for good behavior and was living in a halfway house in Dayton, working at a nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated women find employment. "Hello, Derek." "Rachel, can we talk?" We can talk out here. We stood in the driveway, two people who used to share a bed and a life and a daughter, now separated by everything that trust means when it's gone. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. Not to get anything from you, just to say it. I appreciate that. I know I destroyed us. I destroyed a lot of things. I'm working to make it right. Slowly. I nodded. How's Chloe? She's good. She's running the business side of the company. She's brilliant at it. Rachel smiled, and for a second, she looked like the woman I'd married. She always was the smart one. She gets her work ethic from me, I said. She gets her brains from both of us. Rachel's eyes filled up. I deserve that. It wasn't a dig. It was the truth. An awkward silence settled between us. A neighbor drove by and waved. A dog barked somewhere down the street. And Lucas? I asked. How's the boy? He's with my mother in Florida. He's walking now, talking a little. He says, Mama. That's good. Every kid deserves a mom who shows up. Rachel wiped her eyes. I'm trying to be that person now. I believe you, I said. And I meant it, mostly. She left after that. I watched her drive away in a car that wasn't hers, toward a life she was trying to rebuild from the foundation up. I understood that feeling. I'd done the same thing. That evening, Laura came over for dinner. Chloe was there too, along with Devin and Frank and their families. We grilled burgers in the backyard, the same backyard where Chloe had learned to ride a bike, where Rachel and I had hosted 20 years of 4th of July barbecues, where I'd once thought my life was perfect because I didn't know enough to see it wasn't. The yard was full of laughter and the smell of charcoal, and someone had brought a Bluetooth speaker playing country music too loud. Laura was teaching Devin's daughter how to make a flower crown out of dandelions. Chloe was arguing with Frank about whether we needed a third truck for the business. The September sun was turning everything gold. Dad, Chloe called across the yard, Laura says you cried during a rom-com last week. Is that true? It was a documentary about bridges, I said. Structural engineering is very emotional. Everyone laughed. Laura caught my eye and shook her head, smiling. I was 49 years old. My ex-wife was a convicted felon. My business was thriving. My daughter was my partner, and the woman I was falling in love with had dirt under her fingernails and thought I was funny. Rachel Callahan had tried to take everything from me. My money, my dignity, my faith in people. She'd lied to my face for months, stolen from her own community, and asked me to raise another man's child as the final insult. But here's what she didn't count on. I'm a contractor. When something's broken, I don't walk away. I tear it down to the studs, I inspect the foundation, and I build it back stronger than it was before. That's not a metaphor. That's just what I do. The sun dropped below the tree line, and the fireflies came out, blinking their little signals across the yard like they were sending messages only they could understand. Laura slipped her hand into mine. Chloe caught the moment and smiled. I didn't get the life I planned. I got something better. I got the life I earned.